The Wonderful 101. This is the second part of my 4-part series where this month I'm going to review games that you can't believe I've never reviewed. If you missed the first part where I reviewed Skylanders Swap Force, I'll put a link to it at the end of this video like always. This one was chosen because I realized I had hours of footage for this thing and I just had filed it away and forgot about it. I only found it again when I was getting the old footage for the Skylanders review. Graphically, the game looks fantastic. It's got a comic book feel to it. And because of that, there are crazy situations and characters that litter the gameplay and storyline. In fact, I'd say the sense of humor was the one thing that I enjoyed the most. It never felt forced and it always meshed well perfectly with the crazy stuff that goes down. The story is about an alien invasion, and it's the Wonderful 101's job to stop it. I am really dumbing this down, because the story can get a little confusing to follow at times. But like I said, since it's a crazy action game first, everything including the story is in service to that. So don't take the story too seriously. You can use multiple characters to attack enemies. You can morph them into different objects in order to defeat the enemies around you. Well, there are multiple heroes, and when they do fight together, they do it in very different ways. They all kind of combine up like some kind of Series 2 Voltron robot, and they make weapons and objects to fight off the enemies. They all kind of unite to do different attacks and moves. You draw shapes on the screen to decide the moves that your team of heroes are going to do. You could do this with the gamepad or the analog stick. I found it a little bit annoying to change the way I would play every few seconds if I wanted to use the gamepad, since I would have to move my fingers into the position to use the pad part of the gamepad. So most of the time I just use the analog stick. Sometimes it might be a straight line for a sword or circles for punching, but later on it gets way more complicated. If you've ever played Okami, it's just like that. Now that's where some of the problems lie. I would say that sometimes it would not read my drawings correctly. For simple shapes, it's not usually a problem. But when I had to do like a wiggling line for a whip, it seems like it would have problems with that. And that goes for other shapes as well. But usually I would just retry and it would work, so it was only just a little annoying. Now, the missions themselves tend to drag on a little bit too long, and that was a bit frustrating. I think they added in a little bit too much quantity over quality into some of the levels. Some of the more annoying parts of this game are the ridiculous hit points on some of the bosses. When you would get the enemy's life all the way down, that would only be one slice of their life bar, and it would refill instantly. And it was crazy to see how much hit points were on a boss. It felt at times like it would never end. If you die, at least the bosses stay at the same health as when you died, so there is a little reprieve from the difficulty of the game. However, since you're ranked at the end of each level, you're not going to want to die. When you get good rankings, it gives you points to spend on upgrades for your team. So the more you die, the less you get to spend on upgrades. Wonderful 101 is a pretty good action game. Graphically, the game looks fantastic. Its comic book visuals blends in perfectly with the crazy action narrative. It was a difficult game, and the levels tended to drag on. Plus, the drawing mechanic wasn't the greatest, but overall, I did have fun with this game, so I definitely think it's worth a buy. Well, that was my review of Wonderful 101. Why don't you check out my last review of Skylanders Swap Force? Or you can check out my classic review of Pikmin for the Wii U. Like always, thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe.